If you're a recruitment firm who had bad experience with previous lead gen vendors or other partners who didn't provide the results that you were expected, then there are fundamentally a structure into it, and you might have one or many experiences. And I've seen a lot of recruiters over the last 6 years. They come to us and they tell us that we have paid a lot of amount to other providers, but they haven't delivered what they promised. Now, you have to understand fundamentally the structure, because without the structure of a business development deal, nothing you do or any amount that you pay would not survive. Primarily what is happening right now is that the lead gen agencies, they fail in one of the three places. The first is the targeting, right? They promise you a certain number of placements, which obviously placement is not a conversion metrics that no one can promise because there are a lot of variables. You as a recruitment firm control the placements. So if anyone is promising placements, they have to take into account all the metrics after they give you an appointment, which means your closing ratio, the time that it takes for you to find a candidate, and also the company, and then your guarantee that's in place for refilling and all that. So it's really difficult for a firm to guarantee a placement, and that's why if someone is guaranteeing a placement, that's not the way to go. And when you find out that they have problem in targeting, right? So the failure on their side is primarily because we are running a firm. We help recruitment firms scale, and we are doing it for over like 6 years now, scaled over 90 firms. So we know where are the problems, and I've been personally through a lot of these ups and downs, so I understand the basic structure, and that's why I want you to be aware on each front. So when you're deciding, you're more aware, and you're also aware on your side of mistakes, because primarily recruitment firm owners also just come up and they tell the BD development partners, or especially lead gen vendors, that we don't want to pay you upfront, we don't want you to be to be paid consistently, because we are not being paid consistently. You have to understand your business model is completely different from a lead gen business model, right? And for you to tell them you don't want to pay them, fundamentally you're not driving the overall business the right way, and which will create problem for you in the long run, and then you would complain that the provider didn't help. So primarily what is happening is that they have the targeting problem. They don't target the right people. They do more volume instead of precision, which is causing them to spend more on lists, on infrastructure, and not actually generate the responses or the meetings that they promise. So fundamentally, if they fix the targeting problem, what happens is you fix the bottom line, which are the replies in the meetings. And then they have the plumbing problem. So if there's a vendor who is promising something and they are doing too far, obviously then they don't know about the plumbing, the infrastructure behind what could be realistically supported. Now, you might see the industry benchmarks on the internet, they're out there, like how many replies or good emails getting in recruitment industry, and you can do benchmarks on that, right? So if any agency can provide you breakdowns of their numbers and the process understanding, I think that is a good call, and primarily they know what the infrastructure is doing. And so in terms of the infrastructure understanding, you have to understand deliverability, right? You don't need to understand it, but you just have to get a general view of how many emails are actually going to spam, how many are going to primary folder. I had my previous video where I explained the whole pipeline structure of what to do and what to understand in terms of running a recruitment firm and BD for it, especially the cold email. So you have to understand the basics and then ask questions on the process related if you have from the firm, right? So plumbing mean infrastructure. They have problems in the infrastructure. That's why they failed you previously, and that was the main reason. One was the targeting, then the plumbing means the infrastructure for LinkedIn, for cold email, and also for calls and for signals and the remaining stuff. And then the handoff, which means that the meetings that it provided to you were primarily low quality, because this is the biggest complaint that I hear from recruitment owners, that the quality of the meeting was not good because you haven't agreed on any proper quality meetings criteria, right? And this is the first thing we do with recruitment owners, because it's important, right? If you don't know if you can't define your ICP, then you can't have complaints on the meeting side. You have first to write down, this is exactly my ICP. George is my ICP. He is 50 years old. He is running a company in the tech side. He won a cybersecurity firm. Now he has to be looking for outside recruitment help instead of just having an internal team. Then he don't need a recruitment firm. Then why would I want to talk to him, right? So all of these points which you have to write in the meeting definition. And that's what we sign. But no one actually do it in the industry, because primarily they just want to do conversations. They just bring you some bunch of leads that you can't qualify. And what's happened is then you complain because the people that you are in the meeting with, you just waste your afternoon just talking to people who just at the end of the call, they tell you, okay, we don't need that and we can find our own solutions, right? So that shouldn't happen. And that's the effect of a bigger disease. Actually, it's a symptom which primarily happens before the call, right? So it happens in the targeting, it's happening in the infrastructure level, in the copy, in the qualification, in the objection dismantling, in the believability of the company. The company actually checks you if you had the previous experience and things like that. But if your infrastructure, the funnel structure is not that properly and well structured, then that definitely just prefer someone else over you, right? So I talked about the meeting definition because the meeting definition is important. Most of the firms or the companies or the lead gen agencies, the firms also ask about refunds, right? So people just tell, if you are going to a contract on a mindset of the refund, nothing will ever work, because you are just playing it and you're going like a two-way door, right? Primarily what is happening for a long-term relationship to sustain is you don't have to go for a refund, because the refund primarily just make them work out of survival instead of thinking creatively, building, because there's like this hanging stick over their head. They have to work, and this doesn't work long term. So they do not trust you, because obviously they know if they didn't provide something, they would have to give you a refund. Then there's like free credit, which obviously is if you have an offer which they want to upscale into, you just provide, they give you some credits and then you upscale to that. I think that's a great guarantee to have. And then we have replacement, which primarily we also use mostly replacement, which, let's say if we are telling you that we will provide you 15 conversations, 15 held meetings, and if we didn't meet the 15 first month, we would meet the 15 in the second month, we would try to cover those two. So there's like this replacement that's happening, which is more manageable, believable, achievable, and the infrastructure that we build actually supports it, instead of just promising you that we will bring in 10 placements for you, which is not believable, and no one would believe in that, and no one can actually replace the placements for you, because there's a huge effort on the back end running. I run the BD side. I know how the infrastructure works. I know how much you have to send, what is the data cost, what the infrastructure costs, how much time and mental effort goes into it. So if anyone is promising that kind of thing, that's not the way to go. And that's why we have a system that we built, which we have tested repeatedly on hundreds of recruitment offers and funnels. And we established a certain threshold, which is like 15 conversation held appointments in search niches and also in recruitment overall, which is like the sweet spot. We can go above that, but in most of the cases we can't go below that, because the infrastructure, the volume we set is primarily running on that. If your capacity is more, we can definitely increase that. So there are like different types of guarantees that you have to understand, but the goal is not to go with a mindset that you would need your money back. You have to change that mindset, and this will help you in the long run for partnership, because you would find good people. There are always great vendors out there. When I was starting my company 6 years ago, I was also burned by a lot of people, and I thought that something was wrong with me. I thought my decision-making skill is not good. I thought like I had something wrong with me, or I should be responsible, because I wanted to have a skin in the game and pay them, because I knew that the infrastructure cost money, and if I didn't pay them, then they would have to take money from another client and then build infrastructure, which would not be that good. And then I would complain about the results, but I don't know, if I haven't paid them, they haven't built infrastructure that will support my growth. So these are all the things you have to take into account for a sustainable infrastructure before you go and work with any agency. And what's happening, and the same logic applies when the recruitment firm owners ask, an agency, when you are hiring a lead gen agency, you ask them like, prove it to me first and then I will pay you. That's not possible in the business development side. Normally and traditionally, you are doing cold calls and to get clients, and you have references and relationship and networking that you're doing. But on the business development, if someone is building an infrastructure or signal-based approach where they are monitoring the market, they're looking for intent-based signals, live signals, and live requisition and boards. They are primarily building something first, right? They have to buy mailboxes and then warm it up for 2 weeks, and it's like getting more difficult. They also have to buy lists and data of the people. They have to, find emails and then verify it, then find the phone numbers and all the things that you normally would pay in for the tools, but they are doing it and then setting it up for over a year. And then that's where most of the heavy investment goes there. So if you ask them to prove it first, obviously they have to build the infrastructure to do it for you, and you assume that they're not good at your craft. But primarily what's happening is that they have the cost, the economics you have to understand associated with their business running. Now, I'm not saying that there are firms who are like primarily doing the revenue share model, but you are paying for the infrastructure in that model, right? So there are different kind of models, but predominantly this is how normally it works. The money has to be paid for the infrastructure. It's just like you're paying it now or you're paying it later, and how you actually go with it. But I think the better, the first and the faster you start, the better it is long run for a sustainable relationship when you trust someone. So next time when you are partnering with someone, you have to ask this simple question, and these are the exact questions that we also let the firm owner, if they don't know, we want them to ask us, right? Like, who do actually control? Like, what are the inputs? So we don't promise placements because they're not in your control. The closing ratio is in your control. The candidate side is in your control. So how could we promise placements, right? We can only promise the inputs, which are the conversations, 10 to 15 conversations, right? But we can draw the conclusion of the placements based on your closing ratio, right? So let's say if I give you 10 qualified conversation based on the definition that you signed, the meeting definition, and you said your closing ratio is 30%, and I gave you 10 conversations. So that's where I can say that I would give you 3 placements, but I cannot guarantee it, obviously, because your closing ratio and a lot of other things might be variables here. So you can tell the firms, and we also provide that, show me the 10 firms in my niche that are actively hiring right now. So if they have an infrastructure, they would be constantly looking into the market. They would have an infrastructure. So we have an infrastructure, a system that actually just look at the live market. If you come today and then you tell me like, what are the live roles currently going on in my market, I would give you hundreds of companies that are hiring in different markets across Europe and the US, because I'm living day and night in this, right? And so if someone can provide that, that's the signal that they understand the market and they can actually back it up with the data, right? So that's a live test. Now, who decide whether the meeting is counted? In our case, primarily what we do is, I mentioned, like, we give you a meeting definition. You actually write the definition, how the meeting looks for you. And so if anyone is providing the meeting definition, it's great. You just go with it. One thing I also want to explain here is that you don't have to be impatient, because the infrastructure takes like 1 month completely to just warm up and then start getting initial conversations. The actual results starts from like month 2 to month 3. And then it stabilizes after that. So the pipeline and recruitment is not faster, it's a kind of slower, because some companies have live roles, so that's good to go, just go directly, that's faster. But some companies have intent-based signal, which means that they might be ready next quarter, and they might show interest now, but they might come back next quarter. So that's a sales cycle we look into, and we look at the sales velocity, like a total pipeline that's currently in motion. How fast is it going? What's your cash back? What's your payback period? Means that the amount that you invested with someone, how fast are you getting it back? So you have to look at all these economics metrics, like unit economics, and then based on that decide the actual decision, like if you want to go and work with them. So these are the exact questions that you need to ask, and you also have to just go through everything and understand the scenario, like how a recruitment firm actually works. And you have to understand the whole process, like how BD partner work, and obviously you understand that, but this is the perspective from how we operate and how we help our clients. So if you are scaling your firm and you are stuck at certain placements and you have like a feature payment cycle and you don't have a predictable infrastructure for BD or client acquisition for your firm, you definitely can book a link below, and I'll link the calendar link in the description. I will be on the call with you. We'll break down your funnel. We'll find out what are the problems and find out if we can help you or not. If I can't help you, I will give you advice, and I will tell you, like, we can't help you. But if we can, we definitely will invite you to work with us. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like more of such videos, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's really support me. Thank you. Take care.